Hey guys, DG here. I am gonna do a movie review here on the my hated superhero movie, Daredevil, 2003. Starring Ben Affleck, Jennifer Gardner, Michael Clark Duncan, Colin Farrell, Jon Favreau, and Eric Avari. This was, I think, Marvel's fourth overall film, because before this they had released Blade, X-Men, the first Spider-Man, and Blade 2. Actually, that's the fifth film. So yeah. And this film got released in February of 2003, and it's considered to be one of the more lackluster Marvel movies. Now, I'll explain here in a bit. Until then, I will describe what the movie's about. In the movie, it's about titular protagonist Daredevil going on a mission to avenge his father's death and kill bad guys. And he has to say kill. I'll get to that in a sec. And fight for truth and justice. This movie is kind of dark, honestly. Maybe not too dark. Like, it's trying to feel like a bit of like a Greek tragedy, but it sometimes goes a little too far with it. It's considered one of Marvel's most lackluster movies, and I watched it recently to see why people may consider that, and I have read some critic reviews. Also, this movie has had a director's cut called the Daredevil Director's Cut in 2004, I think? Let me look. I think, yeah, it was 2004. It was rated R, originally incorporated a lot of scenes back in the film to help make it a smidge better. Not super better, but a smidge. Like, it adds some scenes to explain how Daredevil found the Kingpin better, and it added more to his arc as a character. Some of the artistic takes in the film took it from one of my favorite comic storylines, Guardian Devil, even though it wasn't a complete adaptation of Guardian Devil as much as I liked the two have been. Mostly because the villain was owned by Sony and not owned by Fox. Because this movie was a Fox film in 2003, and it only owns certain properties. So, time to get on to the review. Okay, part 1, characters. I'm not going to go too much into the story about the characters, but I'll try, because I want the story to be in the next slide. So, here's the characters. Let's start with our titular protagonist, this Mad Murdock, aka Daredevil. In the movie, he's kind of like his comic in alliteration. I mean, I haven't read too much of his comics, but I've read enough to know what kind of guy he's kind of like. He's like he's a blind detective who's well, not a detective, lawyer to be exact, who goes into a vigilante disguise as Daredevil at night to kick villains' butts. That's pretty much the gist of him. In the movie, he's portrayed kind of like that, but they also take some liberties, and actually, this movie feels similar to the Batman 9 movie. Like, for one thing, no people complain about the Batman 9 movie. Batman kind of killed a lot of that. Well, you see kind of the same thing here. Batman killed Daredevil killing, well, not sort of killing, well, more like manslaughter is how I would kind of describe it. As there's a bit in the movie where he lets a guy he's chasing down falls into some train tracks and allows him to be run over by a train. And that's got a lot of controversy there. So, well, yeah, that doesn't exactly make Daredevil too likable when you have him leave a guy to get killed. But enough about his personality, let's talk about the actor, Ben Affleck. So this is Ben Affleck's first time doing a superhero movie character. Second time, as we all know, will eventually be Batman v Superman. He took on the role because he's a big fan of Daredevil, but I heard he took the role in this movie. He instantly regretted it. Apparently, this was one of his worst roles he's ever done, and regrets it to this day. Some people criticism. Well, here's my interpretation. I think he's alright. Right, as Daredevil. I mean, he gets a basic gist down for the character, but I don't think much of it is necessarily the performances. I think it's the writing. The writing is kind of weird and not exactly the best kind of writing in the world, is how I'd put it. That like the full love is in the term justice in its writing with Daredevil, although there's a term called show don't tell, and you need to show a little bit of him wanting doing justice, the right way, but you kind of see him get just the wrong way by death and stuff. One thing, his origin kind of says in the comics, except the cause is different. In the comics, he got his blindness from accidentally running into a truck. Well, not actually running into a truck. He was some old guy was on the street, and he tried, and a car would come after, gonna go run him over, not intentionally. So he tried calling him, calling out the guy, saying that he got run over, but the guy didn't hear him because he was deaf. So forcing him to shove him out of the way, and causes and says the truck to screech ahead, and a case of goo or something to follow the car and crash on Murdock's eyes, blinding him in the comics. In the movie, it's kind of different. In the movie, he becomes the way he is because he tried to stop because he was going this way. He found his dad was working as a loan shark, which deeply upset him. He tried to run away from it, but he ended up going to a construction site where a guy in a forklift swerved to try not to run into him, but accidentally let the goo spill onto him, blind him. Yeah. So they got kind of right, but not exactly right. Right. And performance is kind of so-so. So it's like he's trying to hold back a lot of emotion, kind of. It just doesn't gel too well. Now let's move on to the Daredevil, Electro. She's a character I don't know too well from the comics. I haven't read a lot of her in the comics, so I can't really go much into comics. In the movie, she's okay, I guess. And she kind of feels a little like a Bond villain. Not a Bond villain, I meant Bond girl. She feels like a Bond girl. You know, a girl who's sexy with the sexy, smitten with the main protagonist. They make out. She's super deadly and vicious, like to play mind games with the protagonist. That kind of shtick. In fact, it leads to interesting scene between the two, which I'll get to in the story section, that has caused a lot of controversy of how bad it is. Anyway, she's nothing too special in the movie. Most movie is just her and Matt that's having romance with each other. Not sex exactly, but just like having romantic scenes with each other is mainly the gist of it. And it's okay, I guess. But then the movie, she eventually does grab her signature sign and fight Daredevil near the end, but it's because she thinks Daredevil killed her old man, which she didn't. I'll get to that in a sec. So when I get to the second one, but now let's talk about our main villain in the movie. The Kingpin, played by Michael Clark Duncan. If you don't know who Michael Clark Duncan is, he was in movies such as The Green Mile, Planet of the Apes 01, The Scorpion King, Kung Fu Panda, Talladega Nights, and The 2011 Green Lantern. He passed away in 2012. One of the things interesting about this cast is that in the comics, the King is actually white, not black. But it's honestly not that bad of a race change. I mean, a lot of people have been. It looks like I've looked up, and a lot of people have been kind of cool with this race change. So I guess. Plus, it's not too uncommon for race changes in superhero movies these days. Like, for example, we got like the recast of Nick Fury, race cast of Nick Fury with black actor Michael B. Jordan as Human Torch, Jackson Nick Fury, Idris Elba as Heimdall. You get the overall gist. So it's not a bad casting, and plus he does feel very tough, very intimidating. He feels kind of like the came from the comics, except a little more brutish, not as sophisticated. And he doesn't have too much characterization in the movie. And his only motivation for doing anything in the movie is because of business. Nothing personal, just business shtick. And that's pretty much it on that. But let's get to our second main villain in the movie, Bullseye, played by Colin Farrell. And oh boy, you're gonna be in for a doozy, I tell you what, when you see Bullseye in the movie. He is like so over the top in this movie. I mean, yeah, he's in the comics, but in the comics too, but he's not as over the top as he's in the movie. Like, one thing they changed about, like in the comics, the character wore a black jumpsuit, but in the movie, he just wears a leather coat and has a target engraved into his forehead. And I'm like, what the heck is this? He has a target into his forehead? Really? Yeah, he is pretty much a hammy villain. I mean, he's honestly, like Haker. Some people like him, some people think he's dumb, but he's still kind of the life of the party in that movie. Like, sometimes you just can't get enough of him. And he, for instance, in opening scene in the movie has him playing a dartboard and gets all the darts in the bullseye. His name as a joke on the name. I mean, sometimes he get a little too cheesy for most people, but he still was pretty fun. And one thing that's interesting is that, spoilers here, in both the comics and in the movie, the villain has Bullseye killing Daredevil's love interest, Electro, which makes them pretty much on par with the Joker and Death of the Family, and Green Goblin and Night When Stacy Die, having killed a person close to the hero. And I'll get to more of that in the next segment. Okay, story. So, here's the basicness of the story. The story is after Daredevil's dad he's a kid, and he gets chemicals on him to become blind, but also have the ability to see sonar visions via sonic vibrations. He goes to become a lawyer in his daytime job and Daredevil in his nighttime job. But after the woman he loves gets targeted by the crime lord, the Kingpin, and his henchman Bullseye, he now has to save the city from the two madmen, something like that. Anyway, it still is a. Anyway, yeah, the plot kind of feels a little cliched in more ways than not, especially if you watch Nostalgia Critic's review of it, where he tried to say it's cliche from a lot of movies, although smidge of an overreaction from Doug there, but hey, it's his opinions, and opinions are opinions. But honestly, that doesn't mean it's perfect. Like I said, there's some plot holes in it. Some get resolved in director's cut, but yeah, it's not always consistent. And the dialogue kind of feels a little off at times. Like, for example, during some of the scenes with Daredevil and Franklin Nelson, kind of a little weird. Like, there's a scene where he describes to Daredevil that the person that he hires to pay him fish. I don't think that's that great of a line. Maybe you could say like the paid crap or something like that. Maybe it could be a little better. I don't know, but yeah, the dialogue kind of feels a little forced and hammed in sometimes. Especially with some of the themes they're going for. Like, the movie itself kind of brings up the theme of justice a lot, although it doesn't exactly ring true so much, considering what apparently justice is. It can feel a little bit critical, considering in the beginning of and one of those first fight scenes has him leave a guy on a train track to die, which is kind of indirect, which is kind of murder or manslaughter, whichever way you want to put it, or indirect murder. That doesn't exactly mean justice. It means you're kind of a hypocrite. Especially later in the movie, he tries to force bulls to out a window. And then it also feels, and it kind of was a bit critical when he leaves the Kingpin to live, even though he's the one who caused the most pain in his life. It just, again, feels kind of like they didn't think this out through of how it might look to the fans. Plus, I noticed one thing. This movie has a lot of connections to the 1989 Bad movie. Like, a lot. Want some examples? Here's some. During the final fight involves characters fighting in a religious place. 89 was the cathedral. In Daredevil 03, it was a church. Both characters' parents died in an alleyway. I think both of them have villains who are kind of over the top. Jack Nicholson Joker and Michael Clark Duncan's Kingpin and Colin Farrell's Bullseye. Like both characters, both movies have actors who played Batman. Michael Keaton, well, obviously 89, and Ben Affleck will go on to play Batman. And both movies have an elderly figure kind of serving as kind of a surrogate father figure. Batman 89 is Alfred. Daredevil is the priest of the church. Both characters. There's love interests become vigilantes. Batman turns Catwoman and Daredevil Electra. Both characters have personal connections to their foes because the foes killed their parents. Yeah, there's a lot of things took from it. Even Daredevil's costume looks similar to the Batman costume. It's kind of weird that that's the movie decided to take inspiration from Batman 89, but it feels kind of like they're more like copying bits from it than paying homage. I don't know how they think people would interpret that, but it kind of feels a little kind of like plagiarism, a little bit like theft. I don't know why that is. I mean, it is like, I'm pretty sure original ideas were still available during that time. I don't think it could have been that hard to come up with original ideas. Is ironically, this would not be the only superhero movie Mark Steven Johnson would go on to direct and write. He later going to do Ghost Rider, which is a little bit weirder. Also, now another connection between both. Both of them had kind of a quality spin-offs on their female characters. Catwoman in 04 and Electro in 05. And both movies, they sucked big time. In this next part here, we'll be discussing the director's cut of the film. Yes, this is one of the movies they made a director's cut for, similar to the likes of the first 3 Alien movies and Blade Runner. In the cut, they had some additional footage in, such as a subplot involving Matt Murdock covering a case for a criminal played by Coolio. At first, when I watched the movie, I thought it was pointless they had it in, but then I did some research and I found there was actually a point to it. Because remember at the end where Murdock discovers who Kingpin was somehow, and also how he gets the police to discover it somehow. Well, it also tied to the criminal, because it turned out the criminal was framed by Wesley, who is the Kingpin's second in command, which is what and that case also being investigated by Ulrich, and he actually goes to Daredevil and tells him the information, which helps him figure out who the Kingpin is. Thus, and Ulrich also helps bust Wesley, which helps the police know who the Kingpin is. So it does a point out. But here's one little edit I really did like in it. In the original version, during the rooftop rain kiss between Matt and Electra, she talks him out of going to go help someone in trouble, and suggests instead they go to her place and, sorry for this not being kid appropriate, I'm going to say it, get their freak on. Yeah, that doesn't make him look like a douche at all. But luckily, the director's cut, that they actually have Matt turn down and succeed. Because after that, he goes and actually does save someone. So they actually did something good. They made him more likable. Well, there was one when we were seeing, and there was seeing Bullseye at the airport. We're to take out a bunch of metal stuff. I guess just for concrete purposes. I don't know. It was just weird. But there was also one, some reason popular scene in the movie. As seen on the show, the Kingpin, and out of nowhere grabbing two of his bodyguards and killing both of them. Why that happened, I have no idea. Yeah, so it's a decent, like, it fixes some issues. Excuse me, it's not the best cut ever. I mean, I'm sure stuff with the Blade Runner cut and the first 3 Alien movie cuts probably are a lot better. I was gonna say probably, but then I remember. Heck, wait, I watched all those movies. They're all fine. So yeah, that's Guy's cut that somewhat what does work. Was it necessary? Don't think it was, but it helped fix some problems, so I will give. Also, for some reason, the movie it got rated R, which for some reason confused me. Because for one thing, there were actually in the R version there was only one F-bomb, which is done by Bullseye demanding he wanted an effing costume. Well, in the original cut, the line was, I want a bloody costume, but they changed to effing. Because R, I guess. So yeah, that's my 2 pennies on the director's cut. Okay, this part discuss the editing of the movie. The movie has some interesting editing techniques in it. Well, scratch that. The techniques are mainly just a bunch of quick cuts, which could work for some movies, but in my opinion, a little distracting. Like, it just goes back and forth through the the jump cuts, and it just gets really headachy. You can't see much what's going on. So the fight sequences are kind of bland in that regard. So, yeah, that's not exactly the best way to edit a movie. Some movies can use it fine, like the Spider-Man movies used it pretty decently because they only use it rarely. And their movies, they use it quite a lot, and it's quite a pain in the butt to have everything quick cut all the time. Which takes us out of the movie because we don't know what's going on. We need to see to know, and it's just confusing as all heck. Which is a bad thing. And editing is important, and if you know how to edit right, you can make a movie right. But if you don't know how to edit right, you can make a movie wrong. Okay, soundtrack. Where do I even begin? And for one thing, the soundtrack here is like barely existing, if you know what I mean. Most of the soundtrack in this movie is pretty much just pop songs from other artists. And I ain't kidding here when I say that. There is composers here. It says it's written by Graham Breville or something. I don't know how you say his name, but apparently composed soundtrack. But I don't see much of a sound. I see much soundtrack besides pop songs. I mean, I'm not saying pop songs don't work in movies. Like, I've seen pop songs in other movies, such as Spider-Man 2. They had one during the montage of Peter Parker living his life after he gave up being Spider-Man to help set the mood for how his life getting better and stuff. But here, some of the songs don't work. For example, during their introduction to the Kingpin, the main villain of the movie, they play the song Lap Dance by Nerd, which is a rap song. And they're playing it to introduce a character who's black. I don't know about you, but I think that's a teeny bit maybe racist. Because for one thing, the character of the Kingpin, both in this movie and in the comics, has nothing to do with rap. Yeah, like this isn't a character that any association with rap, yet they have his character, they had to play a rap song for his character. And if it's because he's black, then I think that may be a little racist to play a rap song for a black person specifically because they're black. Like, I just feel like it's an inappropriate use of that kind of the soundtrack use. For our introduction to our secondary villain, Bullseye, they use the song Top of the Morning to You by House of Pain to establish that the only thing I feel this song establishes is that the character is Irish. And that's about it. Nothing much, just that he's Irish. Like that's really all the song you're going to put that song for, just to introduce that he's Irish? What about something more than that? Like, okay, he's Irish. What about how intense he is, how much of a fighter he is? But why just a song that pretty much is just there to say he's Irish? I do not understand that. And you know, like pop songs in the movie, which gets granted a while, but there's one song I did feel was kind of appropriate for the mood. You see, during the scene in the movie, during Electro's father's funeral, they do play an appropriate song there. I think it's called Evening Rain, is the song I think they played. Sorry, the song is actually called My Immortal, which I felt was like the only appropriate use of a song, considering it was a sad song, although I guess it can be seen as emotionally manipulative for that moment. I guess depends whether you did feel for her father or not. Probably not, because you didn't have to turn the movie, but yeah, they use a lot of pop songs in the soundtrack. It's like how, remember people complain about in the movie Chicken Little, how they did that in there? Well, this is kind of the same issue. I mean, here's what I mean by that. In the Batman movies, they have their own soundtrack by Danny Elfman. Superman, own original soundtrack. Yeah, Spider-Man, own original soundtrack. The list can go on and on. And I don't know why they couldn't just use, use original music instead of shoving these pop songs. I don't know if this was a trend back in... That was me. I was born 2 years before this movie came out, so I really don't know if this was like a trend at the time. But it just doesn't work for me. Especially when there's better soundtracks out there that use more original stuff by the actual composer than just already made by actual artists pop songs. But hey, that's just my 2 cents on this issue. Next off, we have... Okay, here's my final thoughts on Daredevil. It's a very well-intentioned, great movie, but it just feels like it's trying too hard to do style over substance. I know the director's cut did try to fix it somewhat, but not enough for it to make it any interesting. So yeah, the Netflix show is much better. So here's my final score. I hope you like this video. Stay tuned for more videos if I can get them out as soon as I can. Have a good day.